So you've slain the scrapped watchman, you've gone back to the hotel at Krat, you've talked to Geppetto, and you've been introduced to the quartz system and some of the various other mechanics. Now you're going to be heading into an industrial area, and you'll notice we've put on the Krat baton that we got from the police officer, and we've popped the the blade of the electric weapon onto it, the electric coil. This is a very powerful combination, because the handle swings very quickly, and the electricity is the natural weakness of the puppets. There are 3 types of creatures in this game that you're going to come up against, and this is the one that counters the puppets exceptionally. And you're going to notice here as well, if you're paying attention, that the increase in the upgrades on some of the enemies is incremental over the previous area. This is something that Lies of P is going to do for the full duration. It's also a rather elegant way to reuse the same enemies and make it seem like they're new. And for the people that was paying attention, you'll notice I'm also on a different weapon now. The reason I've gone from the baton to this is I wanted to show you that that combination exists, and I wanted to remind myself to speak about it, so I popped it on there for the initial area, and then I cut the footage together so that it was seamless. But the weapon I'm using here is the greatsword blade on the rapier handle, and it is a slightly slower rapier with more damage. And when you don't upgrade right now, it's a really good tool to use the moveset of the rapier and get extra damage for it. We're also going to be using the puppet string for utility, and we're going to be taking on the bigger enemies. And right now, this guy is one of the more dangerous enemies you'll come up against, because the wheel on his back is going to affect your attack sometimes, and this is a mechanic that's going to turn up later on against one of the hardest bosses in the game. So what you want to try and do if you can is always try to attack him on an angle, and that way you won't be interfered with by that silly thing he's got on his rear. And that move there can dynamically shift between 2 to 3 hits. So if he ever picks the wheel off his back, depending on what you do will depend on what he does. If you're close enough for the full duration, he'll slam it twice and he'll do a horizontal swipe that is a fury attack. I haven't explained fury attacks because they make me so angry that I was probably going to rant even more than I already did. But I should talk about them because it's important. So in Lies of P, there is a parry system. You've probably noticed this, you've probably struggled with it, you've probably wondered why it's so hard. Everybody does. Parrying in this game is very challenging, but it's very rewarding if you can do it. However, there are certain attacks in this game called fury attacks, which are red moves, that can only be parried. And that's how they're sold to you. And it's a little bit misleading, this, because technically they can be dodged. They can. Because that move is just a nuclear force to be reckoned with. And here's the part where it defies almost any logic I've ever seen in a video game. This is the part that blew me away, and will probably blow most people away that don't know it works this way. The fury moves, the red ones, can hit iframes. Just think about that. Think about every game you've used invincibility in a dodge to survive. Now imagine if you could just get hit. That is what these moves do. And it gets worse, sadly, because the moves themselves are then tied to the systems of Lies of P, which is incredibly capable bosses that have very generous tracking, very generous hitboxes, very generous range, speed, all of these variables that make them so capable and so dangerous, and then you give them a move that if you are not in it, that's the only chance you stand of surviving unless you parry it. You literally have to be somewhere else. And you can space them and get out of the danger zone and be absolutely fair and fine and kick ass, and it feels pretty good. But if you roll, you can have frame-perfect roll execution, and you will still get hit, because it's just the way that they work. And there's 2 pieces of design here that the developers have done to kind of give you some concessions and give you a bit of a chance, but both of them involve an investment that just seems absurd to me. So the first thing you can do, guys, if you don't like that design as much as I despise it, you can wear a ring that you get from a boss drop. And this ring enables you to roll through fury attacks, so it just turns them into normal attacks that can be dodged with good timing, which in my opinion is how they should fucking work in the beginning. But that ring, I don't know how much it weighs now because they did technically patch the game. That ring used to weigh 13 units or something Over 10, because it's a boss amulet. And if you don't know, when you put that kind of weight on your character in this game, you will be pretty much mid for the entirety of your campaign. Because the ring is so heavy. And weight in this game is so badly calculated and so fucking like, hey, let's throw a dartboard at a 747 as it goes by, that I just can't understand how they calculated any of it. And it completely needs an overhaul, in my humble opinion, which it's not going to get. So you have a ring from a boss that's pretty much at the end of the game. Not quite, but you get what I mean. That enables you to circumvent this mechanic, so it's almost really only useful to you if you play on New Game Plus. And then it has such a weight restriction that it's going to damage the flow of your build to do this. And here's where I find it really weird. They've made it so that it's a huge commitment to get this reward, yet why are all the other commitments we do as a player not rewarded the same? You know, why can I have 50 points in technique and I still have to hit a boss 30 times? Do you know if you had 50 dexterity and you fought Gwyn, you might kill him in 4 hits. You might kill him in 1 if you know what you're doing. Like, it's nuts, man. It's so crazy. I think I'm going to do some kind of experimenting with that because it just blows me away. But the second way you can get around it is by using New Game Plus exclusive P-Organ slots. And I think it's the tier bracket number 7, the final bracket. There is a skill that you can use quartz on once you've got to the end of the skill tree that's only accessible after you've beat the game and put like 20 quartz into your upgrades that enables you to dodge those moves or even block them, I think it is. I think it might be block. I've never done it, I've never bought it, I never will. Does anybody else think that's a touch excessive for something that just sounds like it could have easily been tweaked? Because I didn't realise when I played the demo, guys, that the Fury moves couldn't be dodged. I just thought they were harder. I thought the timing was tighter, and I dodged them a lot by accident just by not being in them. But then when the full game came out and I played more of it, I came to realise I was just not in the hitbox. That's all it is. Like, imagine a hand coming down on a table. If you're in between the fingers, you're fine. But if you're anywhere near those fingers, just even a pixel, you're dead. Completely dead. And the Fury moves hit like a truck. They're the hardest hitting moves in the game. Some of the most dangerous. On my build, I can't survive any of them, I don't think. And it's one of those things where that's the risk that I take, and that's the cost of me avoiding the HP and the defensive attributes of this game. So you would think, wouldn't you, that the reward for that would be insane, because who would play like that? And we have examples of this design in multiple video games. Think about Ninja Gaiden, the unlaboured flawlessness. This is a weapon that is incredibly difficult to get, because it involves doing a very specific set of steps. And when you do it, it's just this wooden paddle. You're like, wow, what is this? This is weird. Why would I want this? And it has these artifacts on it, this kanji. And then you notice when you start to die, that this kanji starts to glow. And all of a sudden, that weapon starts doing a lot of damage. By the way, speaking of damage, guys, I've got a really nice trick here for you. When you drop into this room, if you run past the shield guy, you quit out, you will spawn back in behind him, and you get a free opportunity to do whatever you want to him. And I wanted to show that for the people that might be struggling with this guy, because this guy's not hard, but he can be annoying. And the idea with him is that if you're behind him, you stand the best chance, but he does have some twirly moves, so be very careful. Additionally, when he runs at you, he has a feature that a lot of the enemies in this game have, where they have this set amount of run they can do before they have to stop. And if you do that, you can then use that as an opportunity to run behind him. But it's quite a large distance, so never sleep on it or you'll just get whacked, because they attack really fast. It's coming up here, watch. Stop. Right there. He had to stop, now I'm behind him. That's how you get behind him. That's how you stay safe. That's how you destroy him. But once you get your life low enough with that UF weapon in Ninja Gaiden, it does the highest damage in the game. And it comes at the risk of you are that close to death. You are one hit away from death, but you are killing things in like 2 combos. Unbelievable damage. And that's on a game that is easily considered one of the hardest games ever made. And then let's turn it back to a Souls-like, because these are Soulsian-inspired games. Dark Souls. The one that did the thing that everybody wants a piece of now. The reason we're here right now talking on this video. the monolith itself. In that game, there is something known as Red Tier Stone Ring. It's my favourite ring in the game. When you're at low HP and you put that ring on, there's nothing that's going to survive. Nothing. Because that's the reward of the risk you take at being such low HP. That damage boost you get is phenomenal. It's so good that you never saw it again in the series, because they killed it. They nerfed it, they neutered it, they took its balls. And I'll never forgive them for that, because you don't have to use that ring, and most players can't, because they're not good enough to. And that's what makes it special. And that's what I love about this genre. I love the fact that people can play it in several different ways. I love that, I do. I love the fact there's so much choice, and there's so many different styles that we can embrace, or mock, or denigrate, or whatever you choose to do. But you know where I take issue, guys? I take issue when the people that don't take the time to learn the game start talking online with big platforms and huge influence about things like balance and fairness and mechanics. That's when I start having issue. You know, when the most successful walkthrough on YouTube is done by a player that can't even play the games? So when you search for help in Elden Ring, you get someone bumbling around like they've never touched the series? That's where I take issue. And I'm not saying that you have to have the best quality walkthroughs. I'm not saying you have to be the best player. But the moment you step into the pantheon where I am, and I have been for over a decade, that's where I hold it against you professionally. Because I can't stand it when I watch people's videos where they're like, easy way to kill boss, and they run up to the boss and just play fucking Hungry Hippos with it. And it gets 1 million views. And then there's people right now, I'm not talking about myself here, some people think this is just projection, but it's not. There are people right now doing really cool things that could help you, really, really fun videos, really useful videos, and you'll never see them. Because you can't see them, because the algorithm pushes the people at the top, and the turds rise. So you just get this, oh, this boss is really easy, watch me fuck this guy up. And then he dies 3 times and runs away and comes back when he's leveled up. Like, I hate it. I hate it, and I've hated it since day one. And that's the biggest issue I have with the diversity of Souls games. Sadly, you do not have to be good at these games to be respected in them, because most of the people that play these games aren't very good at them. And they're the people that need the help the most. So they go to the people that are the most empathetical, and then they kind of artificiate this cycle of mediocrity. And the issue that stands, the strongest issue of all, is when you don't know a game to a certain extent where you can understand the minutiae of it, the nuance of it, the real detail of it, is you don't see what's really happening in a given situation because you don't understand it enough. And it's just ignorance. But sadly, the internet's convinced everybody that ignorance is a tool, that it's a virtue, that by knowing nothing, you are an authority on something. And it's a very dangerous tool, which irritates me to death. Because I know so little about so many things, it's terrifying. And I try my best not to speak like I'm an authority on them. I try my best not to stick my gauntlet into that entire escapade, you know. I'm not going to cross that Rubicon. It's not for me. But you know, the places where I do know things empirically from the time I've invested, that's when I'll start to talk, and that's when I'll start to add to the discourse. And I've made this walkthrough here as a statement to that discourse, because I'm angry at the way this game's been received. Because I think it's really unfair how it's being portrayed in certain places by certain people. And I think there's an ugliness to it. Because Lies of P has a lot of problems. It is a deeply flawed game. But those problems aren't the ones that these people are telling you that they are. Speaking of a problem, any puppet that is half a man is more of a man than the men they were before. It's really frustrating, actually, that the puppets that have no legs are more capable than standard puppets. And it leads to you thinking they're going to be weaker and less capable, and really they're not. And this is a design that I think is quite ugly, because it leads to situations where you get fucked and you don't know why. And speaking of unwanted penetration. We're going to be coming up against the mighty Shovel Knight here. This guy is going to cause a lot of players a lot of problems because he's not a very nice guy. He's designed specifically and put in this place intentionally to be a pain in your ass. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bait him out of here, and I'm going to show you how you fight this monster without any timing needed whatsoever. He has so much HP, you're really going to have to fight him. So run around his fury attack and then start attacking him. When he rears his shovel up, just walk behind him and then attack him again. After 2 big hits, he generally goes down like this. If you care about taking damage, you're going to have to move because he dumps this fuel on the ground and it sets you on fire and it does residual damage. All I'm going to do, because I've killed the enemies, we have a lot of space to work here. I'm going to keep pulling him to different zones. He gets stuck on this pipe, so if you want to throw things at him, that could be really easy, but I don't want to kill him like this. It's not my intention. But it's good to know that. This is his combo. He does 1 hit and then he usually runs towards you, but he's out of range. So now he's going to do it again. Walk behind him and then start attacking him again. We got another one of those stuns. Now we can do a riposte. Before you ever press R1 on a riposte, guys, you want to always do an R2, a charge R2 if you can. You can do a few things in those moments, but there's a little bit of weird gating on those staggered sequences, which reminds me of Kingdom Hearts. So if you do too much damage to the boss when he's in a staggered state, he'll auto-recover. And I think it's terrible. I think it is the opposite of what that moment should be. You should be rewarded for stunning bosses in this game, and you're not. And it's really silly. And they do it because they don't want you banking a level 3 Fable move into a riposte. Because if you were to do that, you might be able to do about 8,000 to 10,000 damage on the right build, and that would shut down most of their bosses. And I think that there's this fear in the devs. I hope I'm wrong, but I sense this fear that they were scared people were just going to kill these fights before they had chance to show you how fucking cool they are, or how hard they are, or how evil they can be. It's kind of fascinating to me that it works the way that it does. And what happens is, you have to experiment then. What can you do that gives you the right amount of damage that doesn't stand them up? That's the whole point, you know? And I've got about 150 hours on this game, not counting the probably 50 hours I had on the demo. And I can honestly say, guys, I still don't know the min-max approach to doing the ultimate damage in a sequence like that, because it just seems like sometimes you get away with murder and sometimes you don't. And one of the things that makes this game really difficult, which you might have noticed yourself, is the damage category when you hit people, the factoring numbers there are random. So you don't know how much damage you're going to do because it's never a consistent number. And you might have noticed I've popped up some HP of enemies and bosses in this walkthrough to give people a little bit more information and a reward for watching. You might wonder how I got that, because it's really hard to test in this game because of that random factor. Well, this game has console commands on PC, and I can put the developer mode on, and in the developer mode there is a one-hit kill cheat. And when you put it on, you do exactly what their boss or the enemy's HP is to the T. So when I hit them, they die, and it does exactly what their life threshold is. And when you know their threshold, you understand that in this game you can overkill people. But sadly, the overkill doesn't really change anything. And of course I get hit by one of the easiest enemies in the game, Captain fucking Master of Puppets over here. It's gonna happen, ladies and gentlemen. It's one of those things. He's not a particularly difficult fight, but his hitbox are massive, and it's really easy to get caught by his feet, so don't do that. Don't be stupid like me. And the strategy here is very simple. I'm going to just whack on him until I get the stun, and then when he falls down, I'm going to try and bank damage. He does 3 things if you stay between his legs. He'll stamp a foot. He can do it 3 times. He usually does it once. He'll do the double-footed dropkick, or he'll do the spin. And I experimented with this creature, trying to stand just in front of him outside of stamping range to get him to spin around, because that's the biggest damage you can do. And sometimes he does it, and sometimes he doesn't. So the time it took for him to fuck about when I was trying to attack him from a distance to get the spin, it was quicker to beat his legs up. And if you hit his balls, you do recoil off them. That's one of those defense systems that every male on planet Earth wishes they had, but sadly they don't. And depending on the weapon you're using, sometimes you recover quicker by attacking the ball than you do by attacking anything else. It's kind of weird. It feels a bit jarring at first, but you can do odd sequences here with really slow weapons. And you might look at this and think, wow, this looks like the last giant in Dark Souls 2. This is terrible. I really like this monster because his HP bar makes sense. He is a massive, towering structure. He's like a construction robot. So him having lots of life and having tons of opportunity to beat the piss out of him, it makes sense to me. Later on, when you come up against some like skinny woman wearing fucking Silent Hill 2 cosplay, she has his HP. Why does she have his HP? You know? She's like a Sabutio player with a sword. I've just got, you know, easy 10k life. But just you wait till you get to that monster, ladies and gentlemen. You're gonna love her. That weapon I just picked up there, one of the best weapons in the game. One of the best handles, and a really fun blade if you stick it on a fast handle.